welcome to Baking and Books. My name is Lexi and I'm an amateur baker who loves to read, so each week I post videos of myself attempting to bake something new while also talking about a book that I have recently read or just really love. This week I'm going to be making some savory scones. They've got multiple cheeses, some prosciutto, and some green onion in them. So these are not going to be like the sweeter scones that we've made before. This is more of a savory, snacky kind of thing, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And we're also going to be talking about Dominion by C.J. Sansom. This was a really interesting historical fiction book, and I don't think we've done a historical fiction yet. But I'm excited to get into this with you guys today, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, well that was difficult. I swear sometimes companies just don't want you to be able to actually open their products. So the synopsis on this is pretty easy. So we'll do like a basic one, and then I'll get into a little bit of a deeper one. So basically this book is it's set in London, and it's kind of like what would have happened if Germany had won the Second World War and Hitler stayed in power. So it follows a couple different storylines as if, that had happened. So it's like 10 years past the war. I think I lost a little bit of my sugar there. So it's about 10 years past the war, and so a lot of people have really moved on, but things in England are really starting to progress in a bad way. The Jewish people are starting to be taken to camps, but of course, just like last time, it's, for their own protection and just sort of rehousing, but we all know what it really is. And so of course there's some resistance, but for the most part, people just stay quiet because they know what the Nazis are capable of, and they don't really want to be involved. So this story mostly follows David, as well as like a Nazi general guard sort of thing, and sort of the back and forth of both of their stories and how things sort of progress, because David ends up, getting involved with the resistance. So you're looking at this whole situation from two different sides. So of course, it's definitely a really interesting take on history. I was really fascinated by the idea of it, and I was really interested to get into the thick of it. I almost just dropped this knife. How? I think it would have missed me, but it could have been close. So that's pretty much it. I don't want to ruin anything else for you. Definitely an interesting historical book, and looking forward to getting into it in more depth here in a second. But if you haven't read this book and you don't want any spoilers, then go ahead and skip forward until the video says no more spoilers, and you can just see how our scones turned out without having to have anything ruined for you. But if you've already read this book or you just genuinely don't care, then go ahead and stay with me. We're gonna keep working on our scones and get deeper into the story. I think this is a really interesting take on history, because I think in this time period, or in the time period before the war, I think what you really see most of all is typically historical fiction about the people in World War II, whether that be about the Jewish people and what they went through, or whether that be, about the German people in the middle of all of that, whatever stories being told. I definitely feel like that's typically more of what you see. And so to read a historical fiction that's more based in not just the realism of the world, but turning our realism on its head, and instead saying, okay, well, that was interesting as it is, but what if the bad guys would have won? What if this would have totally turned our world upside down? What would it look like? What would England be like? And how would all of that have come to be? And what would people be doing about it? The resistance and things like that. So I like historical fiction. I'm always into, I think for me, it does have to be certain time periods. You guys know me, I'm not really huge into romance, so I'm not really all about that kind of stuff. For instance, Bridgerton holds no interest for me, just because that's not really, unless it's a murder mystery, I don't really want any. Although I will say I did binge watch all of Downton Abbey, so maybe I'm just lying to myself. But I do like historical fiction, and I definitely like it when they put a fun twist on it. This is going to be messy, I can already tell. What really pulled me into David's story right away was the idea of him having to hide, even from his wife, that he's Jewish. I just think about how sad that must be, to have to really hide a part of yourself, especially from the person that you love. I've just realized by splashing this on me that I'm not wearing my apron. Oh well, that's life today. So I just think like it must be so sad to have to hide that part of yourself from someone. And I mean, not just like your friends and, your work colleagues, but from the woman that you love as well. And I don't blame him for doing it, and I don't blame his parents for doing it. I'm just, saying out loud, like, it just must be really a sad thing to have to do. I think the first thing that I really noticed about this book, though, is that you definitely have to like history. Like, I definitely felt as though, I like history, and I think with the right teacher or with the right sort of learning thing, like books, internet, whatever it may be, I think it can be a really interesting thing, and I think it's something that we should all study because we can learn from it. But I do think you have to be somebody that is going to enjoy history, because there's quite a bit of it. Even when they fictionalize the parts of it, they're still talking about historical events, even if they're fictionalized. So they're setting up the world for you, which is great, but I think you definitely have to be able to enjoy history. There were definitely some parts that dragged, and some parts that I knew that I was okay with and that I kind of liked, simply just because I was okay with the history part of it. Okay, I think I have to grate this, and that ought to be interesting. Okay, this is about all I have, so we're going to try it. This could be awful. Maybe I should cut it. We'll cut it into pieces, and then we'll try it. I think the thing is, though, like, in my opinion, Sarah gets a really raw deal in this whole story. Like, I think Sarah is trying really hard to be a good wife, and, they're grieving their son, and I just feel like Sarah gets a really raw deal, especially being treated by David. Alright, well, the cheese grady thing did not work. So, I mean, it started to. It thought about it. It worked a little bit, but it didn't work the way that I wanted it to. How about we say that? Aha, I knew that we had one. I'm just an idiot. Alright, let's try this again. So I just feel like I don't understand why he doesn't just tell Sarah the truth. Like, I can understand why he hesitates. I understand that, like, being part of the resistance, being Jewish, like, all of that is really dangerous. And I understand, why he hesitates. And I understand that she eventually forgives him for all of that, because it could have put her in a lot of danger, too. And so, like, I think it's great that he doesn't just, like, put her in danger because he can. But I also think that it would be nice if he would have maybe told her. Like, I just feel like, they're in this together, and they should be relying on one another. And I feel like, they should be able to you should be able to rely on your partner to be honest with you and tell you stuff, and you should be able to rely on your partner to be able to share things. And to be honest, I feel like it's David just trying to, like, pull away from her, and I think that that's just not a fair reaction given everything that they have gone through with their son. I can understand maybe why that might be his first instinct, but I also think it's a really unfair thing for him to do. Thankfully, I was able to buy Parmesan already grated, so I don't have to play this whole game. Now I have to chop up prosciutto, and, like, this sliced kind is the only kind they have at the store, so I'm just gonna wing it a little bit. But I really like prosciutto, so we may just, like, tear it up instead of chop it up and go from there. Because more is not going to hurt my feelings. Like, more prosciutto is not going to be a bad thing. The other thing about David is that, like, it sucked because I felt like I really liked him when the story first started. Like, I was like, he's a good character, he's a good man, like, he's trying his best, he's, and of course, like, I would want him to be a part of the resistance because, obviously, the Nazis are shit, so I would want him to, be a part of the resistance and be, like, helping to fight against all of the, bad people. But then I just feel like he gets himself constantly into trouble by not telling Sarah things. Like, now here she is thinking that he's cheating on her because he's secretive and going to these meetings and staying late at work, and, she knows that the secretary's there. And honestly, like, David kind of does a really crappy thing by treating the secretary like he does. I don't remember her name, so I apologize to this fictional secretary that I don't remember her name, but I don't. But, he's maybe Carol. But, like, he's just not really nice to her. I mean, he's nice to her, obviously, but for the wrong reasons. And he ends up, like, getting her into some huge trouble. And, like, he's lucky that she just rolls with it. Well, I guess, honestly, he's lucky that she just really loves him, which is a terrible thing to take advantage of. So he kind of just like starts to go downhill for me because I'm like, dude, you cannot just keep treating people this way. Okay, now for my green onion. It says 1/4 cup, but I think we're just gonna use it all. That's probably about a fourth. Okay, I think I'm just gonna mix this with my hands because I'm gonna mix this together, then mix it in with the dough. This smells like it's gonna be amazing. I'm not even joking. The thing about this story is that it definitely, like, I couldn't help just thinking the whole time, like, what does Frank know? Like, it's gotta be something with a bomb, right? Like, it just has to be. But I'm just like, how? Like, what do you know that's so terrifying that it would cause you to have, like, a freak out? And then on top of that, like, other people would want so badly. And they don't even know. They don't even know why they want it. That's what's weird. Like, these people don't even know what he has. They just know that he has something and they want it. Okay, we're gonna knead a dough together here. I think it was a really interesting comment on nationalism, though. Like, when Ben goes on his kind of whole rant. And Ben is a really interesting character. You know, I kind of feel like I personally have, like, a love-hate relationship with him. Because it's like, I want to like Ben. I think he has a good purpose behind himself. Like, I think he really wants to do better and he wants to have a better world. But I do think he's a little extreme in the sense that I just think some of his, like, views on violence are extreme. And I understand that they're in an extreme situation, but still. But I do think he has an interesting point about nationalism that I think we don't talk about a lot. Especially here in America, nobody really ever wants to talk about something like that. You know, they see it as pride. And like, I'm proud of my country. I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of these figureheads. And I think there's definitely a big difference between pride and nationalism. And I think there's a fine line between them. And I think pride is like, I'm proud to be from here. And, you know, I'm proud of the people that live and work in this country. I think it has many great things about it. Maybe it has a few flaws, but that's okay. You know, the people are amazing and we're gonna someday change that. And I think nationalism says our country is great as it is, and if it's not, it's because of these people. Like, these people specifically are the problem. And if we just got rid of them, everything would be better. If we just did things like this, everything would be better. I think just the idea that, like, everything's perfect and it doesn't necessarily need to change is a problem. And I know what you're thinking. You know, you're thinking, wow, that's kind of extreme. Just because I think the nation is the greatest in the world doesn't mean I'm a nationalist. But the truth is that I think maybe that can be true, and maybe you don't think that, and maybe you're not. But I think you also have to realize, too, that if you look at your country and you don't see problems with it, that's a great thing. But remember to talk to the other people that actually live in your country. And not just people around you, not just people like you, but people who are different than you, people who have different life experiences than you. Talk to those people too. Because the truth is that if your country is not made for everyone, and that if not everybody feels happy and cared for and supported, then your country is not as great as it could be. And it could stand to be a lot greater. Personally, I think that's a huge problem in the United States. I think that people say, well, it's great as it is, when in reality, there are a lot of people who don't feel that way and who feel not quite as safe. And that's really sad. And I think that's a major problem in our country that a lot of people refuse to recognize. I think I'm going to have a lot more than 10, unless I just want giant scones. Should I make giant scones? No, we're not going to do that. The thing that really gets me, though, is this whole David and Natalia thing. That just really, like, that lost me on David forever. Like, he's not perfect, but he's still a good man, and I was willing to, like, give him the benefit of the doubt until he started this whole thing with Natalia. First of all, the only reason he likes Natalia is because he thinks she's mysterious, that she's this foreigner with a mysterious past, and she's so beautiful and unique. And I'm like, you're blatantly ignoring how amazing your wife is. Like, I get it, you've had problems. Losing a child is something that hopefully none of us can ever imagine. And I understand that that's gonna hurt your relationship and, you know, maybe be very difficult for a while. And I think that's totally fair. But I also just think when you have somebody as good as Sarah, you're just really screwing it up by trying to start something with Natalia. Like, she's not stupid, you know? Sarah is a very smart and intelligent woman, and she's very perceptive. So I feel like you know, David thinks, oh, it'll be innocent. I don't, you know, I'll get away with it. And he doesn't even know if he wants to still be with his wife. And that's fine. But, like, if you don't want to be with your wife, then go home and tell her you don't want to be with her anymore. I'm sorry, but it's as simple as that. And if you're saying to me right now, it's not as simple as that, it is. It really is. And if you're saying it's not as simple as that, you've clearly never been cheated on before. All right, well, multiple rounds are gonna go in the oven because we ended up having quite a bit of dough. And I tried not to do them too thin, so I don't think they're too thin. But I brush them off with the half and half. So this is our first round. You can already see, like the little pieces. Well, I don't know if you can. The camera makes it hard, but it's gonna go in the freezer for about 30 minutes. The last thing I will say about this book is just that I wish we knew what happened to everybody. Like, you know, I know that the three of them get on the ship to America, but like, we don't really have any information about them after that. I would have at least liked a little bit of that. Okay, if you left because of spoilers, go ahead and come back and join us. Our scones went into the oven and came out, and they smell so good. Honestly, if these are bad, I'm just gonna break down in tears because they smell amazing. Now, I didn't put Parmesan cheese on top of these before they went in the oven. I did that with my second round, but I kind of wanted to see these without and then, you know, be able to compare. Okay, so let me grab, this one looks really nice. Okay, so there's our scone. Decent sized, lovely golden bottom. Ooh, it's still so like warm and flaky. These are so good. Yeah, these are amazing. They kind of make me feel like a fun, fancy biscuit because I feel like you would taste this more like in a round dinner biscuit, but because they're scones, they feel like more fancy. These are definitely amazing. I could see them being like a good side to soup or something of that nature. They would be delicious. Honestly, I'm giving these a 10 out of 10. I love these. I think these are so good. Obviously, I need to work on my crafting skills a little bit, but I feel like with things that are biscuit-like, yeah, everybody wants them to be that cute little triangle, but I think at the end of the day, it's not as important as when we're decorating sweets. So I feel like for these, it's okay that they didn't always come out looking like beautifully triangled. I have some that do, and then I also have some that don't. And it's just because like that's how the dough works. It's starting to get a little sticky, so when I was pulling it apart, yada yada. So I don't think the decorations is important, so I'm not going to take points off for that. I definitely think these are a 10 out of 10. They taste so good. They smell amazing, and I feel like I did a really good job. If you have other recipes that you want me to try, go ahead and throw those my way. I'm always looking for new recipes to try. I do recommend this book. I definitely think you have to be into history, either fictionalized history or, you know, whatever, just because there is quite a bit of that in it. It's definitely a thick book, so you have to be in it for the long haul, and if that's just not your thing, then I would pass this one up. But I would give this one a 4 out of 5. I would say for the most part, it was an interesting story, and I really enjoyed reading it. There were definitely some choices that the characters made and some choices that the author made that I wasn't a huge fan of along the way, but I did mostly enjoy reading it, and I enjoyed the journey that it took me on, so I would recommend it. If you had a good time today, go ahead and like and subscribe. I try to be here for you every week, and I'm always a little bit of good and a little bit of hot mess. Today we got lucky, and it was a little bit of a less hot mess. Although I did get messy and forget to wear my apron, so it is what it is. Thank you to those of you that watch every week. You guys are the absolute best. And I'll see you next time.